Yesterday, the nation received some unfortunate news. Agniveer Gawate Akshay Laxman died in the line of duty in Siachen. Let's put out what we have on our screens for our viewers. Agniveer Akshay Laxman hailed from Maharashtra. He was serving at the Siachen Glacier, the world's highest militarized zone and possibly the world's deadliest. Quartered in snow, silent to remain. When the bugle calls, they shall rise and march again. All ranks of Fire and Fury Corps salute the supreme sacrifice of Agniveer Operator Gawate Akshay Laxman in the line of duty in the unforgiving heights of Siachen and offer deepest condolences to the family. Those were the words of the army as they grieved the loss of an Agniveer with his family. These are photographs that were put out of the mortal remains of Agniveer Akshay as the military was paying its tribute to his supreme sacrifice. This is Agniveer Gawate Akshay Laxman. The same night, however, an unfortunate post was put out by Rahul Gandhi. I'm going to put that out on our screens right here. He said, and I quote, "A young man was martyred for the country, no gratuity, no other military facilities during his service, and no pension to his family in martyrdom. Agniveer, there is a plan to insult the heroes of India." This is what Rahul Gandhi has put out on social media yesterday. Rahul Gandhi's post has now resulted in the Indian Army having to put out a clarification on what the next financial assistance steps are for Agniveer Gawate Akshay Laxman's family. Let's go over what the Army has now put out. They've pinned this post to their social media profile. They say, Agniveer Operator Gawate Akshay Laxman, laid down his life in the line of duty in Siachen. Indian Army stands firm with the bereaved family in this hour of grief. In view of conflicting messages on social media regarding financial assistance to the next of kin of the deceased, it is important to clarify the emoluments due to the next of kin are governed by the relevant terms and conditions of the service of the soldier. As per the terms and agreements of the Agniveers, this is what the army says. Non-contributory insurance sum amounting to rupees 48 lakh. Seva Nidhi attributed by the Agniveer 30% with equal matching contribution by the government and interest thereon. Ex-gratia of rupees 44 lakh. Pay of balance tenure from the date of death till completion of 4 years, more than 13 lakh rupees in this instant case. Contribution of 8 lakh rupees from Armed Forces Battle Casualty Fund and immediate financial assistance of rupees 30,000 from the Army Wives Welfare Associations. Now, there are a number of questions and concerns that arise out of what has happened. Why did Rahul Gandhi spread misinformation regarding financial assistance to the Agniveer's family in the first case? Why do people in positions of power and influence choose to spread this sort of fake news? We're living in an unpleasant reality where anything goes in the name of political point scoring. When political opponents today believe that they're in some sort of a war, right? They're fighting a war to save India from the other side. They're probably justifying the pettiness, the nastiness, and the mindlessness with the famous words of poet John Lilai, all's fair in love and war. But who's drawing the line for our dear netas? I guess we have to. So should we draw the line at these attempts to politicize the Indian Army? When the Agniveer scheme was rolled out, the opposition jumped in to represent those who found it unfair, and that was perhaps justified. They were playing their role as the voice of the people. But when a significant leader of the opposition decides to make unjust and untrue claims which force the Indian Army to put out clarifications, there is a clear problem. We cannot allow the politicization of our armed forces under any circumstances. You know, we often wonder why Pakistan didn't learn anything from India, right? We have so many of those conversations. But here's a lesson from Pakistan for us. Pakistan is a nation where the political class is deeply intertwined with the military. Not a single politician in Pakistan can operate without military support. Similarly, no Pakistani chief of the army can work without political backing. The simple point is, nobody wants to be Pakistan. We often talk about how sports and entertainment should be kept away from politics. Today, we've reached a stage where we're having the same conversation for the armed forces. When either side of politics makes untrue claims against the army, is it an attempt to force the army to pick a political side? If not, what really then is the end goal? We take this conversation forward. Joining me on the broadcast are, of course, people of the armed forces. We want to have a very clear conversation on what they actually feel about what has happened. I have with me Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, Major General Rajan Kochar and Major Mohammad Ali Shah. Let me begin with Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. Wing Commander Bakshi, what exactly did you feel when you first read Rahul Gandhi's comments, and why do you think Rahul Gandhi made the comments that he did?
Thank you, Devika. I never thought we'll come back to the Agniveer topic again, but now that the topic has been put to test, the question around here is not the Agniveer. The question here is, what is the role of the politics in nation building? Are we going to, do we think that this is a divine gift to mankind, that a politician can make anything and everybody has to be subservient? Do we have to define democracy like that? What is it? That is what I'm trying to understand, that here are a set of people who are standing up to save their motherland at all cost, and here are some sons of the same mother who are questioning that and who are questioning the entire procedure. See, they are trying to fish in troubled waters for their personal gain. Rahul Gandhi or anybody, I'm not bothered. The question is, there are politicians who say, why do they get the money? They get enough money to die of things of the same thing we have heard. So question is, where do we put an end to it? How do we do it? First thing is, this topic should have been discussed by the public relations officer of the army. See, question here is, let me be very blunt. Army is not allowed to handle their own public relations. Their PRO should have been answering that. In terse statements, that would have shaken the parliament. They'll say, how can army speak about us like that? See, this is our problem.
Yes.
We are suffering from this malady. And we have everything. I've been in that position in South Block. I know very well. They never allowed you to speak. Somebody else was handling your public relation. Some IDB ministry man who was handling it. No, you should not talk. If I wanted to handle the public relation of the three services, I was not allowed. The question is, why these rules have been made like that? What are we scared of? See, this aspect, any politician will take advantage of it. So the idea has been taken because he wants brownie points, political points, at any cost. Whether the Bangladeshis are handling our dead soldiers on the stick, like, it came out that 6 of the soldiers or 12 soldiers were carried on the stick like this on the border, and Indian army has not done anything, Indian government has not done anything, all those things. These are the things which are made up for their own mileage. We actually should not bother. We should actually try to put our house in right position and then bring out this point. This point should be brought out, why Indian army public relation is quiet. Are they are calling for some civilian or Devika to come and fight their case? Is that so? That should not be done. Rest. Now we come to why politicians talk like that. Well, in democracy are allowed. So we also like to say, at least we say we are better than China because we can abuse our prime minister. We are better than Pakistan. So if we are better, then there are no free lunches. So we have to face that. We have to decide what we want. I personally feel that we have to redefine democracy, a government-army relationship. Where does the army stand? What does it mean? Who's public servant? Indian Army or the government of India? What does it mean by that? What does it mean by giving your life for the nation? What does it mean? This aspect has to be made very clear. I think we have not made it clear. We have this colonial hangover we are still carrying on, and that's why we are told to keep your mouth shut. Because whenever the politician is, you are not supposed to speak. Why? They are not your masters. In fact, let me tell you, Devika,
Right.
I was told in South Block, they are your public, they are your masters. And I told them they are not the masters. They are servant number one of the people. If there is any master, the master is a man who stands for his motherland and lays his life on the red blood on the white snow. That sort of a thing. I was posted out. That's what happens. So this aspect, I'm sorry, Devika, this will happen. We have to now think about how do we tackle this problem.
Absolutely. I'll come back to you in just a moment, Samir. And Gigi Dwivedi, who's also, of course, a Bangladesh war veteran. He's commanded a battalion in Siachen, the same exact area from where Agniveer Akshay Laxman has lost his life. Major General Gigi Dwivedi, just, your first thoughts. Do you think it was fair to put the army in a position where it literally has to list down the compensation for the Agniveer's family?
Well, Devika, first and foremost, my heartfelt condolences to the brave heart and the family which have lost their own very near dear one, and which cannot be compensated. Second point is, I talk as a veteran, and you rightly said, I fought 17 war, commanded my battalion Siachen Glacier. So I'll be talking right from the ground and not getting into too much complications about the macro issues. The first and foremost is that on the front line, we are all, and our Indian Army is in very, operational areas, not only Siachen, but in the valley and all across. So the soldiers in the front line are exposed to danger, which can actually be at the cost of their life. So that must be understood by a political class, and they should not politicize the issue, because the security of the nation is above politics. Now, secondly, here we need to understand one particular issue which needs to be addressed. We should not duck away the issue because it's a real live issue. Now you have two Jawans in their 5 positions in Siachen. One is the Agniveer through Agnipath scheme, and other one is regular one, and there are varying benefits to the two, but the cost of life is same. So therefore, I think, politics aside, as a army people, as soldier, as commander, as a battalion commander, if I am faced with this situation, what I faced in 91, it would be a very difficult call. And willy-nilly, the person who doesn't enjoy the same benefit as the Agniveer would have certain amount of constraint. Because after all, we soldiers put our life on the anvil because, for one good reason, the nation will look after what are near dear ones who will survive beyond us. So that is one question I think that need to be addressed, and it's not too late to address the question. The second is the camaraderie and spirit de corps. Moment you start having two distinct classes of people, I think that's going to take a hit, and that's a strong point. And I have served in China as a defense attaché, and Chinese army has a serious problem of same conscription. I think we have an edge on that, and we must maintain the edge. The third point is the politics part. I feel that our politicians must be mature, and if at all they raise the issue must be raised on facts and figures, not on something which is presumptuous, and that actually lowers the morale of the armed forces. It also misleads the public, and end of the day, it's the security of the nation that suffers. So all I'll say is that what has happened with the loss of life is a challenge. It will happen in Siachen. We lose people. We lose more people due to climate rather than the enemy, and this need to be addressed, and people should be in same terms and conditions. And I oppose the Agniveer scheme, very vehemently, for simple reason. It was based on two rationales. One is to lower the pension bill. Unfortunately, civilians who constitute 20% of the MOD actually draw 40% of the share of the pension. And secondly, was lowering of the age from 30 odd to 25. But I found both in Bangladesh war and Siachen, the soldiers who had 8 to 10 year surveys around 30, 32 were tough and very brave. That's the other side of the story. But I will end up only on two notes. First and foremost, our politicians must keep away from interfering and also misleading the public on defense issue. And secondly, aberration must be addressed by the army within the house and not in the public domain.
Absolutely. Major Rajan Kochar bringing into the conversation, a fair point there raised by Major Gigi Dwivedi. We're talking about, and he's served, of course, in Siachen himself, Agniveer Akshay Laxman also serving in Siachen when he's lost his life. We, at this point in time, of course, should be having conversations about what perhaps can be done better in terms of making it bringing in new technology as far as serving in Siachen is concerned, because we as people in our homes have only seen some videos that have recently come out from Siachen of how our soldiers manage in those absolutely impossible situations. However, we're sitting here now having to have a conversation about what Rahul Gandhi said and the fact that the army has had to put out literally a post clarifying that no, his service was not in vain, and of course he was a sole breadwinner for the family, is the son of a labourer, and of course the country will take care of the family because he was the son of the nation and it's our responsibility to take care of his family. That's essentially what the army is trying to say. So my question to you, Major Rajan Kochar, is what do you think goes on then in the minds of politicians when they make these sort of comments, because this is not the first time around. We've seen some nasty comments being made about the ability of the army in the past as well.
Devika, first of all, I would offer my condolences to the braveheart who has laid down his life for the nation. I would like to answer your question in three parts. First is the political part. The political part is primarily a statement opposing a particular policy of the government. He is not casting aspersions on the armed forces. He is casting aspersions on the policy of the government. So I think a clear distinction has to be made between the two, because if you read the statement of Rahul Gandhi, he is questioning this very policy of Agniveer, and he's saying that government is not giving the soldier his due. So a point to remember here is that Agniveer and a regular soldier are governed by different terms and conditions. The Indian Army spokesman has very clearly brought out that the terms of an Agniveer soldier is different than the soldier of a regular commission into the armed forces or a regular recruitment into the armed forces. Now, the second question is that Rahul Gandhi, being such a senior and a leader of a largest opposition party, how can he be so misinformed? He must be having some advisors around him who possibly can tell him that what is the rule position. So it's amply clear that he knows the rule position, and in spite of that, he is making a statement. So it willy-nilly implies that he is only doing this to target the government. The next question or the next point of view which I would like to raise is that about basically the Agniveer part of it, we need to understand one thing. Technology, as you said, it's absolutely correct, but technology cannot replace boots on ground.
Yes, absolutely.
We have seen today in the wars which have recent wars. You can take the example of the Russia-Ukraine war. You can take the example of the Israeli and Hamas, what is actually happening. And we find that the Israel army is only 1.7 lakh strong and 4.5 lakh other reservists. So now, this is the point I would like to make here, and for the government to note that whichever country has gone in for the conscription schemes have faltered on the war front. And that is why our experience in the Indian Army and my 37 37 years of experience in the Indian Army, brings forth the fact that since our Jawans are part of the regular army, there is no differentiation between one cadre and another cadre. So the level of motivation, morale, and training, and this I would like to highlight on your channel, the aspect of training, because we are only giving them 6 months of training and sending them to Siachen. So you can understand why this casualty has also occurred.
Right.
There would be a court of inquiry also going into it, but possibly the larger issue is, do we need to go back to our original 32 months of training, 36 months of training, or we are coming back to the 6 months of training? Because there is a level of physical fitness, there is a level of the way mentally and physically a soldier, a recruit is transformed into a soldier. So what we are finding is, if this boy could not cope up with the harsh climate of Siachen, we may have to look into, though it's only a one-off case, it's not only one Agniveer has lost his life, others are still there, and many of them must be performing well in Siachen. But not to take that point, but certainly there would be a need to look at the training aspect. And lastly, Devika, I would like to add here that the government is thinking of right-sizing the Indian Army. Right-sizing is another word for downsizing. Right-sizing does not mean that you reduce the combat strength of the armed forces. Yes, the logistic part of the armed forces can certainly be thought of, but I would like to impress on your channel that the combat element of the Indian Army should not be tinkered with, because today we are looking at a 2.5 front war. Earlier, the Indian Army was all geared up to fight against Pakistan only. But today the Indian Army is geared up to fight both against China, Pakistan, and a grey zone warfare.
Yes.
So all those people who are working in the government and who are recommending to the government to reduce the combat strength of the armed forces, I think need to have a relook.
Okay.
Thank you, Devika.
Very fair points there raised by all of our veterans from the army who've joined us today on the broadcast. Major Mohammad Ali Shah, let me bring you into the conversation. Like I said, today we should perhaps have been having the conversation that we're having right now. Unfortunately for Rahul Gandhi, he's chosen to spread misinformation. What he could or possibly should have done with his position of power and influence would have been speaking about these issues. Perhaps talk about why he feels that there could be or there should be a need to maybe bring about some changes. As Wing Commander Praful Bakshi has pointed out, Major General Gigi Dwivedi has pointed out, Major General Rajan Kochar have pointed out, all of them have pointed out certain problems that they foresee with the scheme that has been brought in, and how perhaps with extra training, more months of training, something perhaps needs to be shifted around for this system to work for our nation. But instead, here is a man who's decided to, in what some people are saying, a deliberate attempt to misinform the public, who may be looking at his post and thinking, okay, then Agniveer's scheme is absolute trash and there's no point in enrolling under this particular scheme.
Okay, Devika, that's a very, very good question. And firstly, I would like to convey my heartfelt condolence to Sipahi Lakshman's family. It is indeed very, very tough when you lose a near and dear one. Now, Devika, I would like to say it's a very, very good question. When Agniveer scheme was announced last year and most of the army veterans had opposed it and they were not very happy with it. On the contrary, I was one of the few youngsters, I would say, rather a few ex-army persons who was for the Agniveer scheme. So much to the fact that, my former commanding officers, my former GOCs, we had long conversations with them, and I had my points, I placed my points in order, they placed their points, and I would say, with all respect and all adoration, and I think in my small little wisdom of my small little 5 years of short service in the army, what I could understand, because I have served as a short service officer of 5 years, Agniveer is for 4 years. And that's my limited understanding, and perhaps I could be wrong as a youngster, and I'm sure my seniors here would forgive me for that. So I see, Devika, I always saw a lot of perks and benefits, and for the larger picture, in my small little wisdom, I found Agniveer to be a good scheme. Now, the very fact is, Rahul Gandhi, when he comes and becomes trigger happy and he tweets, first lesson learned is half-baked knowledge is a very, very dangerous thing. Secondly, never be trigger happy. It is an advice for our soldiers as well, for Agniveers as well. When we were in the army, as a youngster, as a 23-year-old young lieutenant with 2 stars on my shoulders, I was advised never ever, get trigger happy. If you suspect that a terrorist or a militant is coming, attack, you'll fire. No, don't do that. First, assess the situation, and then you'd see how thing goes. So this also is a very, very good lesson for our trigger happy youngsters, soldiers, particularly the Agniveers who could be. Secondly, when you talk about the Agniveer casualty, Sipahi Lakshman's casualty in Siachen Glacier, well, a very, very difficult terrain, the toughest battlefield in the world, the highest battlefield in the world. Well, I would not say because of the less training or because he was lesser trained. I would slightly differ there, with all respect, with all love and honor for my senior veterans here. I would say it could have happened to anyone. It could have happened to a regular Sipahi. In fact, I would treat Agniveer as a regular soldier. I would not differentiate him as an Agniveer, and like in the way we have a short service officer or a regular officer, but that's a different officer cadre. You cannot compare it with the soldiers. Now, I would say they are just the name given is Agniveer. That's about it. And now, secondly, when we talk about the pension benefits, or when well, he will not get pension. That's not because he's Agniveer, but because even if a person who's joined, who's enrolled, if he does not complete the stipulated period of time, that's 17 years for a non-commissioned officer, for a Sipahi, and 20 years for an officer, that's a different thing. He will not get pension, not because he's Agniveer or whatever, but because you have not cleared that mark. Secondly, one more point I would like to make very, very clear over here is, they are, in case I have a fracture in the army as well, there is a court of inquiry, even for fracturing. If I fracture my football, my finger, if I'm playing basketball, there would be court of inquiry for how has this soldier, this officer, fractured his finger. Is it attributable to military service or not? I'll give an example over here. For example, if a soldier, because we stay in high stress environment, high pressure job, it's not a job, it's a way of life, but it's very, very high stressful. So if a person, God forbid, commits suicide is not attributable to military service, so the person will not get the pension benefit. So now it will be wrong to say a person Agniveer. Now, when we talk about specifically this case of Sipahi Lakshman, in this case, the demise as per the battle casualty, therefore the next of kin would be receiving 48 lakhs, non-contributory insurance, ex-gratia of 44 lakhs, 30% of his salary contributed by the Agniveer to the Seva Nidhi scheme, with equal matching contribution to the government plus interest. And additional, they will also get the balance pay which was owed to him from the date of death till the date of his residual, which could have been his service. Let's assume the fact, had he not got his regular, that's like earlier it was 25%. I don't know whether they would be increasing or what it is. I don't know the latest number. It was proposed earlier as 25%. Right. Apart from that, 13 lakhs also as a contribution of 8 lakhs from the Armed Forces Battle Casualty Fund. So I think it is the Agniveers, in case they, God forbid, they have a battle casualty, they also would be compensated. But yes, of course, there is no compensation for a life lost. That is a different story altogether. And today we saw what happened in Israel. We saw also that on 7th October, on Saturday morning, we all saw how Hamas came and did a surprise attack on Israel. I would like to convey a message to all our citizens through you and through your channel. Today, our civilians, with all respect and love for them, they are safe because the Indian Army is guarding the frontiers. They are totally unmindful of their own personal safety. They go beyond the call of duty. They risk their lives. They jump before the enemy and they protect everyone. They do not let any harm come to anyone. Be it Agniveer, be it the regular soldiers, be it the Army, Navy, Air Force, be it the BSF, be it the CRPF. When I say the armed forces, I mean the security agencies. They risk their lives for them. So a lesson learned from Israel as well, that okay, now that our armed forces are protecting you. Now Israel has a compulsory tour of duty of 3 years, irrespective whether you are a boy or a girl. At a certain age, you have to do your basic military training and a basic tenure. It is compulsory over there. Here, Agniveer was totally voluntary. So it's a 4-year service. So if you ask me, in my personal humble opinion, in my limited knowledge of not having the wisdom and the experience of the generals over here, I would, from my side, from my point of view, my course mates today are all combined. Some of them have finished commanding their battalions. So I am talking from that youngster's perspective over here. Now, why Rahul Gandhi would have given this tweet, coming back to that question. Well, I do not see it. No one's a fool to make a bigger fool of themselves. So he was ill-informed, obviously. His advisors have been advising him wrongly. They have been feeding him wrong information. I don't know who the advisors are.
Okay.
Who are the mischievous advisors? In fact, even when he went to Manipur, my affinity towards Manipur. Even when he went to Manipur, I felt he should have taken advice from people who have served there, people who are familiar with the terrain. There are n number of people you'll find. So the very fact is, he did not do it. It might be a mistake, yes, might be a genuine mistake, but then it backfired upon him. It totally backfired. So do not be trigger happy is the message I would like to convey, Devika.
Okay, I'm running out of time, but I want to give Wing Commander Bakshi, Major General Dwivedi and Major General Rajat Kochar just about 30 seconds. I just want to put out one last question. A few days ago, there was an incident of suicide by Agniveer Amritpal, and that matter was also politicized, wherein the Punjab government came in and said that we're going to raise this matter with the centre. Why was he not accorded, a guard of honour on his death? And once again, the army was put in a position where they had to come out and give a clarification for what the procedure is that they follow in such cases. Today, we see in the case of Agniveer Akshay Laxman, where Rahul Gandhi has come out and made this completely untrue statement, saying that there's no compensation now for his family, and this entire scheme is an insult to the armed forces. What sort of a precedent do these sort of mindless statements set, and how is it that we can tackle it? Wing Commander Bakshi.
Guests out here, let me tell you one thing, Devika. This is our in-house problem. This has to be tackled by the armed forces. Okay. The armed forces commander must be very clear, approach the government and tell them that we have this problem in hand and I wish to tackle it in this manner, and let it be properly told to the media in a press note. There, nothing should be hidden. And if we have any problem, then the Commander-in-Chief of Indian Armed Forces, the Chief of Army Staff, must call in an in-house meeting and review and revise whether they have gone wrong in this, and tell the government we have gone wrong in this. Let us make an adjustment to it. We should not be shy of it. We should now go ahead and catch the bull by the horn where we should do it. We have wasted enough time by calling, and we should also get one policy letter. How should we treat the politician when they make a statement like this? Should we ignore them? And we can't become Pakistan and China. But let me tell you one thing, how they handle their politician, we can't do that. We are a democracy. So let it be that we are honest about it.
Okay, Major G.D. Dwivedi, 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, Devika, first and foremost, I think we should understand that national security is about politics, and therefore politicians must be sensitized that they should not make such statements which can be injurious to the security of the nation. Secondly, every scheme needs to be scrutinized, and it's not too late. I think Agniveer's scheme has some serious flaws, and this must be rectified. And to this end, I think the army leadership must be quite forthright and bring it to the notice of the politicians and the political leadership that ours is not a tourist army. Ours is an army which is in the operation, and therefore we can't have two systems, two scales, two type of conditions for same kind of duty, same kind of danger. And I think this needs a relook, and it must be done on priority, so that there is certain amount of ambiguity in the mind of the soldiers as such, which should be removed. until we have fully motivated soldiers of same category, same standard.
Okay.
I think there'll be a discrimination which will be injurious and which need to be rectified. All I can say is that national security must be taken very seriously at all spectrum, and we should leave nothing to chance, because nations pay heavy price when they slip
Okay.
up on national security.
All right, Major General Rajan Kosh, 30 seconds. I need to wrap up.
Absolutely, Devika. The most important point here is that national security cannot be weighed in terms of economics or budgets. You have to understand that it is far beyond that, because if somebody comes and hurts your sovereignty and it comes inside your country and captures certain areas of your country, I don't think any amount of money or any amount of budgets you can save and you can curtail it. Second important aspect is these politicians, we must have a code of conduct in place. Because unless we have a code of conduct for these politicians, they will continue to make such irresponsible statements. So when a person becomes a member of parliament or he is an MLA, he must sign a code of conduct, and if he violates it, he must be expelled from parliament. So that kind of a strict action has to be taken. Only then we can stop these politicians from commenting on issues which are actually hurting national security. So
Okay. All right.
these are my points.
Okay, Major Shah also had his hand up. Sir, 30 seconds, please.
Thank you, Devika. Thank you very much. I would like to convey a message through you and your channel to all the politicians. Please leave the army alone. Please leave the army. Army knows its job very well. Army, we have one of the most professional armies in the world, in fact. When we are training for the army, we are told one thing the very first day in the officers' mess: do not discuss politics, do not discuss religion. These are two things which are taboo in the officers' mess. So our politicians should realize, they should know that they are dealing with the best and the most professional army in the world. Devika.
Okay, absolutely. If the army has a discipline to not discuss politics, hopefully politicians will also one day have the discipline to not discuss the army, at least not in this ill-informed, unjust, untrue manner, as we've seen with the Congress leader.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.